So coming up next, an interview with a singer-songwriter that many Gen Xers had a total crush on. I know I did. She was in a duo, then they broke up. She played music for something like 10 years and sold indie cassettes of her music, but she never caught a break until she met an up-and-coming actor who lived in an apartment near her. He caught a show. He gave a cassette of one of her songs to a director for consideration for a movie that they were making at the time. The song was used in that movie, and almost overnight, it went to #1. She didn't even have a record deal. That's actually the first person in history to do that. Pretty good negotiating position. Coming up next, an interview. She tells us the whole story. It's a great one coming up. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever stood in line for 30 to 40 minutes to buy an overpriced band t-shirt at a concert, you're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now to get the story straight from the artist. Click the bell and all that good stuff so you know when our stuff's coming out. How many times have we done that? Anyway, check us out on Patreon as well. We have further content there that helps us keep it a daily channel, and we have our merch below. And you don't have to stand in line for 4 hours. I've said it many times on here. It's a universal truth. Music is a time machine. I mean, within the first few seconds of a song, you can be swept away and dropped exactly into a memory that you had thought was maybe long forgotten. Stay I Missed You by Lisa Loeb is exactly that song for me and many of you watching this show.
You say I talk so all the time.
It takes one right back to 1994. You know, when mainstream music was still pretty good.
Now I know that I did something wrong because I missed you.
This was the lead single from the soundtrack Reality Bites. Ben Stiller's John Hussein look at the grunge era, I think. Stay I Missed You is a song with a really amazing story, which Lisa told me about in an interview that's going to follow. In a different world, this song could have been sung by Daryl Hall. Lisa Loeb had written it with him in mind as the vocalist. She heard that he was looking for material, but halfway through this, she found out that he just wasn't looking for songs anymore, so that didn't work out. But it was one inspiration. She set the bar with her song, making history as the first act ever to hit #1 without a record deal. It's a great story from a gifted writer and interpreter of song. Like I said, I was one of hundreds of thousands of people who were in love with Lisa Loeb for sure. She's just a great artist. This song has certainly stood the test of time. I mean, recently it was a subject of a really funny Geico commercial.
Are you crying? No, there's pollen.
Here is the inside story of Stay I Missed You from Lisa Loeb. As we get into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the brand I always wear. When you design your glasses at Zenni, right up here, you click on the info button. You can say goodbye to foggy lenses and glare with Zenni's advanced 2-in-1 anti-fog and anti-reflective coating. I have it on most of my pairs. I love it. Check it out today. Here is Lisa with the story of this #1 hit.
You say I only hear what I want to.
Let's get into that Stay I Missed You, because that went to #1 on the pop charts. The first time that an artist had ever gone to #1 without a label, and it didn't happen again until Macklemore and Ryan Lewis did it with Thrift Shop a couple of years ago. But just incredible. But it was also a crossover song because it went to #5 on the AC charts and on the modern rock charts, #7. The mainstream chart, it went to #1, and it was all over the place. But it spent 30 weeks in the charts too. That was the other amazing thing.
It was exciting. And what was cool too is I had a radio rep named Skip Bishop, who I'm still good friends with. And Skip would call me, and Juan every week would say, guys, guess what? So he would be able to tell us the chart positions the day before or something. He'd say, song's going up the charts. And even though the song did not have, I was not signed to the label, Skip Bishop and his team, the Top 40 promoter and his team, they really, with RCA Records, they did promote the record once it started getting some traction in Houston. This DJ, Cubby Bryant and Tom Pullman, who's one of the heads of iHeartRadio, they decided to play the song on the radio. And it started getting traction. So the RCA Records group really pushed it and promoted it and flew us around. And all that stuff.
And it went gold too, which at that time was tougher to do because we're talking about the mid-90s or 94, and records were out by that time. People were buying CDs or buying like maxi singles and cassette.
But yeah, the song went gold. I think it went platinum in London.
It did. #1 in Canada, #6 in Australia.
It was crazy, yeah.
And it's sold, I think, almost 1 million now here.
Yeah.
It's a 900-something thousand, but...
Wow, I don't remember all these facts.
I was a chart geek.
It's funny, I never listened to what was going on in top 40. I did when I was a kid, when I was listening to the radio, but it wasn't until my song got on the radio in 94 that I started paying attention to what was on the radio, because I was purely like an alternative person. I would never see like a mainstream movie or listen to like top 40 radio. I would never do that. Like, I don't think I'd done that since like 8th grade. But then I started getting played on the radio, so I started listening. And then later it was funny, we would listen to see if the song was going to come on, and Duncan Sheik came on, and other people we knew started coming on the radio too. But yeah, it was exciting. I mean, I had managed myself a lot. I had, been doing it for such a long time, getting gigs, trying to get on the radio, not mainstream radio, but college radio and stuff. And so to all of a sudden be on the pop charts.
Right.
It was really unusual.
To be sandwiched between Boys to Men and All for One, which were the 2 #1 songs.
I swear I missed you.
I mean, it made sense. Well, it still doesn't quite make sense. I think that's one of the reasons the song became successful, is because it was unusual sounding with all these like highly produced songs and videos. Things aren't always as simple as they look. Even the recording of the song Stay, people always say, oh, it's just you and a guitar, but it actually isn't. There's actually a band. And,
the background vocals.
And Liz Mitchell actually sings on it, and Dan Littleton, her husband, plays guitar on it. And but it was exciting.
I think it was #1 because it was so relatable and because it was so different from anything else that you would hear on the radio.
Right.
And it was honest. You had talked about that you wrote it, of course, about a relationship that you were in and the arguments that were happening, but also you went into other areas. Your friend was going through severe depression.
Yeah.
And some of your writing does that, where you go off and...
Like, I gotta keep focused. But I'm like, well, this isn't that. Like, I'll go over here, I'm like, well, this isn't that. And then I come back to the song. I literally say that in the song Stay.
Well, this is not that. Think that I'm throwing, but I'm thrown.
The brilliance of the song to me is that you're describing other situations, but when you're... It's relatable in the fact that when you say I only hear what I want to, and you say I talk so all the time, so.
Yeah.
I love it when you say that.
I talk so all the time, so.
It's like you're having a conversation with yourself, and the song is very conversational. It's like the thoughts that we have in our head when we're going through anxiety or fear or just worry about the situations, we're overthinking things.
Yeah.
And that's so cool about that song. I don't know of a lot of songs that do that so well.
Well, I'm glad you get that. I know it's weird, growing up, especially in the school I went to an all-girls school for 11 years, and there were a lot of rules about writing and a lot of focus on grammar and correct writing and setting up your structure properly. And it wasn't until after college that Liz actually gave me a book by a woman named Natalie Goldberg called Writing Down the Bones. And that was the first time I thought, oh, I'm allowed to write sort of whatever I want. Like, there's not a way. Like, the best way to do it is just to do it, and it doesn't matter. And I think I was really going through that, and I still use that a lot in my writing process. When I was growing up, I admired all these abstract songwriters like The Police, like The Cure. Songs you didn't know what they were about exactly, but at the time I was definitely in a place where I thought it's important to just write from my own perspective. And it did end up connecting a lot. And I think that's always a good place for a writer to start. But it's kind of weird. There's no classic structure to that song. There's a structure, but it's not a classic structure.
Right.
It kind of unfolds and then wraps itself back up again. And then it's like when my kids do opposite day for each other, they say, it's opposite day. And then my other kid will say, well, does that mean it's not opposite day because it's opposite day? And that's kind of exactly like the end of the song. Like, you say, I only hear what I want to. Does that mean everything I've just explained is all going on inside my head? But sometimes it feels that way.
You say, I only hear what I want to.
I'm just definitely, writing more from the perspective of a neurotic person, like a Woody Allen conversation inside of his head.
Lately, the strangest things have been going through my mind because I turned 40 And I guess I'm going through a life crisis.
I remember I used to say this back in the 90s because people would talk to me about Courtney Love and Alanis Morissette and some other women musicians who were like strong. And I was like a waif, you know? And I was like, well, when I write songs, it's from all those different facets that are going on in your head. It's not just, I bumped my toe and I'm mad. You know, it's like all those things. That's how you really go through things. You can be on the top of the world in 1 minute, and the next minute you could be down in a hole.
Right.
And then you can convince yourself, no, I think everything's okay. Maybe it's not. You know, maybe I'm not looking at this the right way.
Where I don't understand. If you really care, I'm only hearing negative.
But I also love when you get right in and then you hear, yeah, I missed you.
Yeah, I missed you.
And then you hear the strum of the guitar. That grabs you and it doesn't let you go. And then when you get to turn the radio on.
I turn the radio on, I turn the radio on, and this woman was...
And I love that part too because we've all been there. We're trying to escape something.
Right.
That is haunting us. And no matter where we go, we turn on the radio and we're hearing our song on the radio. It's not us literally singing, but it's somebody saying.
It feels like it. And sometimes you hear those songs and you're just, it's funny how you can hear a song like certain songs and they just sort of go by you. It's just a melody, it goes by you. Then when you're in a certain mood, a really happy one or a really upset one, certain songs grab you and you just can't believe they're singing about your life. How is that possible?
And that's how 70s singer-songwriters were. That's why like Carly Simon and James Taylor, really, it was this confession and it worked. And
yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, confessional style songwriting. Because it is style, because sometimes it's not actually true.
Yeah.
But it's a good starting point. It's nice to find something that feels truthful, even if the words aren't true and it's not necessarily about myself. Just like other writers, you know, you find something that it's the engine, you know, it's the thing that pushes the thing along. Inspiration.
The best line, this is my wife's favorite line too, is you try to tell me that I'm clever, but that won't take me anyhow or anywhere with you.
The backhanded compliment.
That won't take me anyhow or anywhere with you.
So clever, but that's not going to help you.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
And then you said that I was naive and I thought that I was strong. I thought, hey, I can leave.
I thought, hey, I can leave, oh, but now I know that I was wrong.
I know that I was wrong because I missed you. And then that part right there, how you hold that out. Oh, man. You just the vocal there is so perfect. I just love it. But the payoff at the end is when you bookend it. And you've told a story here now, even though the middle of it, it's that anxiety and that fear and all those things that we felt. But then it comes together at the end and you pull back and there's that tenderness. I love that, how it ends the song.
You say, I only hear what I want to.
It's like real life, right?
It is.
It's like when you're in that argument with somebody and then you stay with them and you come around. Or do you? But yes, you do. But sometimes when you come around and it hasn't worked out even, you can still have that, you can be broken up and feel like you still have a connection. Oh, why did we break up? We still loved each other. That feeling, but that's a tough feeling, especially when you're younger. I guess it always is tough, yeah.
The forgiveness part of it too.
Yeah, or you realizing you are wrong, or realizing they were never mad at you and you were just creating it all in your head, which also happens.
And I thought what I felt was simple.
Our video was Ethan Hawke, who directed it, had a great idea to just have it all done in one take.
One take.
Yeah.
Which was so different from the videos on MTV, which were in your face and brightly lit and edited with like a million different edits. Ours was like really real feeling.
And cost millions of dollars in production.
Yeah, it does. Well, everything costs a lot of money. We had a great DP.
Your friendship with Ethan Hawke. I want to talk about that really quick. He, of course, lived in an apartment next to you, across from you, I think, in New York. And you were in the theater group and you used to write songs for his plays, as I understand
that's right. I met Ethan through my friend Josh Hamilton, who's also an actor. Josh and Ethan were in the movie Alive together. He was one of the many boys who were in that movie.
Right.
And Josh introduced me to Ethan in New York City, I guess. But there were a big pack of us that would run around together. We'd going to bars, eating breakfasts, going to see each other's shows. And Ethan did start a theater company along the way. And I wrote instrumental music for his for some of his plays. Because we lived across the street, it was really fun. It was like we were kids. He's like, hey, come on down. Although I was like up on the 19th floor. He was a big support as well. You know, he plays in a band in the movie Reality Bites. And so he asked me to try to write a song for his band. And it was a typical music supervisor situation where they asked a number of people to write a song called I'm Nothing for his band to play in the movie. And I wrote a song. Gordon Gano from Violent Femmes wrote a song. I think Soul Asylum wrote a song. And they picked the Soul Asylum version. And then Ethan asked if I would give him a copy of my song Stay, because he really liked it. And then they ended up putting the song in the movie.
And they put it end credits, too.
I know. Well, when I went to see the movie, I went to the premiere and the song never came on. And I was like, oh gosh, maybe I misunderstood that the song was in the movie. But then at the very end, the song came on finally, and they played the whole thing, and I was like, oh,
wow.
You say I only hear what I want.
Well, and then Geffen, of course, signed you, and it was Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories.
Yeah. Well, it was exciting because there was an A&R person named Jim Barber who had been a fan for a while. Like, I'd played at South by Southwest and other music festivals for years with Liz Mitchell and then on my own with my band. And this guy, Jim Barber, was a manager in Atlanta. He'd worked with the band Driving and Crying and some other bands. And then he started working for Geffen. So it was cool because there were all these sort of younger A&R people from different labels who were interested. But finally, when my song, it was on the soundtrack, the buzz got even bigger. All the more senior executives became more interested. And so that's when I got signed to Geffen. I was actually signed the week that Stay went to #1. That was a good place to negotiate a record contract.
Okay.
And my attorney was really great. I still have the same attorney, Adam Ritholtz. And we licensed the song Stay to be on that record Tales, because we knew Stay had to be on the song, because that was like sort of part of the first introduction into this mass market. But yeah, it was really fun. We made the record with my same band. They like took a lot of attention and pride in the record cover, and the art department at Geffen helped me go outside of Geffen art department to make the record. What I wanted was a cat chasing its tail. It was going to be called Tails. So they had all these different famous illustrators do an illustration. The chasing of the tail never quite came out, but we got Edward Fotheringham, who's a great illustrator from Seattle, to do the cover, which is kind of vintage. The nose looked like a little martini glass in a way. But I like things to be a little vintage looking. We did it on uncoated paper stock, which was really nice and vintagey looking.
It's like one of those distinct 90s album covers of the cat, the drawing. And that was an album cover that you couldn't forget. Well, and then Newfound Glory, of course, covered it.
Yeah.
And they had you do the background vocals.
I only hear what I want to.
And Chad Gilbert ended up producing my last grown-up record with it, because we made that song together and we loved working together. So he asked if he could make a punky pop rock record with me. So we made a record called No Fairy Tale, because we did Stay. It was so cute to have their cute, really rock version. Stay. It was a great way to start being a little bit out of the top 40, but being in it, because I reached so many people. It was amazing to just have that kind of being able to reach out and be all over the world all of a sudden. It definitely took a lot of sort of strength and friendship from my friends and fellow musicians to be like, no, I really still am. I'm a guitar player and I'm a songwriter, and I might be on MTV, but I'm a real musician. I remember my drummer, John Feinberg, who I'm good friends with still, gave me a hard time because we wanted to play the song Stay at our gig at CBGB's. And he said, why are we going to play that? It's popular. I'm like, because people like it, and it was already one of our songs before it got on the radio. It's not, we don't have to lessen the value of it to ourselves just because it's popular now. Ooh, we're selling out, So, but it does take a lot as with your ego and being a musician and a young person, trying to, know that you're not selling out if you're still being true to yourself, even if it is becoming successful.
Stay.
Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Lisa Loeb and this 90s classic #1 hit. What are your memories of it? What are your memories of the soundtrack, the year 1994? When do you think music started to kind of lose its luster, at least mainstream music is what I mean? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe below. Check us out on Patreon. All of it's about keeping the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth.